when you consider buying a business, there's some due diligence issues I want you to make sure that you've thought your way through before you spend your good, hard-earned money to buy a business. So earlier when you heard me talk about the due diligence and some of the things that you really need to understand before you make this commitment, I said I'd get to them. Well, here we are. And here are some of the specific things, and then we'll talk in a moment about some of the general things. But the specific things that I really want you to think about before you buy a business are, why is it for sale? And you know, this is almost an obvious question, but you have to ask and get an answer that you feel is credible. Why is the individual who's selling their business, why are they selling? And I don't take the first answer you hear. This is when you have the right to be skeptical. If somebody is giving you a deal that, as they say, is too good to be true, sometimes they are too good to be true. So you need to ask this basic, simple question of, why is this business even for sale? And depending on the answer they give you, you get to start making your own decision from that point. Then next, what's your general perception of the industry? Because your perception of the industry is probably the same as most of the customers you're going to try and attract. And even though this other business has been in business and has some customers, it's going to be your intent, I'm sure, to increase the volume of business. Well, if this industry has a negative perception, maybe something that's happened since all the customers were put in, and a classic example would be the subprime mortgage business. The subprime mortgage business a few years ago was thought of as a very, very good business, one that a lot of people got into, and quite frankly, a lot of people made money. But all of a sudden, in the last several months, that whole industry has really taken a beating. And so now, if you're trying to buy a business in the subprime mortgage business, firstly, it's going to be a lot cheaper. But secondly, the likelihood of you getting new and better and different customers is greatly, greatly reduced. So you need to think beyond the history of the company you're buying, but start to think about the future of the company you're buying. And then specifically, not just the industry, but the business itself. So if we use the subprime mortgage market as an example of considering the industry before you make an acquisition, now I want you to think about the individual company you're looking at buying within an industry. And is this company one of the good ones? Is this company doing something well and right? Or is this company somebody who, quite frankly, hasn't done it well and right? Because when you buy, you become them. You inherit not only their business and their customers and their market, you become them in the eyes of the consumer. And so if they've done some evil deeds, and I don't need to describe that to you other than if they've done something that has alienated them from the marketplace, then this is going to radiate over onto you. You know, we've all driven by places that say, under new management. Now, why do you think they're saying that? It's a pretty clear signal the old management didn't do a very good job, and they want the whole marketplace to know that somebody new is in town, somebody new is running it. Well, isn't that a waste of advertising? Isn't that a waste of your hard-earned dollars? Oh, sure, you can change people's opinion over the course of time, but wouldn't it be better to buy a business where you didn't have to change anybody's opinion? Where they already liked you, where they already felt good about you, where the business you're buying had a good reputation in the community you're in? Of course it would. Well, these are things you need to find out in the course of your due diligence. Now, another specific thing to look at is, what's the long-term outlook for the business and the industry you're now deciding to buy a business in? Is it something that is, as I described previously, is it coming over the top of the bell-shaped curve? Is the industry at its height and soon to fall off? Remember the dot-com bust? Remember how all these companies rushed in and everybody who had a dot-com behind their name was an instant expert and could make a lot of money? Well, after a while, the market got saturated, and whenever that happens, you know what happens. It comes down the other side. So you need to think about, where is this business? Where is this industry in the market trend? Where is it on the rise? Or is it on the decline? And not to say you shouldn't buy a company on the decline, because you can. And sometimes that's where some great bargains are, but you've got to know the difference. And the only way you're going to know the difference is if you do some homework and you do some research. Next, what's your competition? What's a competitor doing in your neighborhood, in your community, in your city, in your market? You've got to really understand them. And we're going to talk about them a little more specifically in just a moment. But right now, I want you to think about, what's the competition doing? Are they increasing Are they decreasing? Are there more people coming into this business than there were a year ago or 2 years ago? Or are there fewer people coming in? I mean, right now in the United States, the real estate market is suffering quite a bit. Now, that for me is a great time to come into a market because the competition is reduced. Well, conversely, even a year or so ago, when that market was on the absolute rise, that would have been a really tough time to get in. Really tough time to get in because you're going to be competing with everybody and their brother. So these are things you need to think about as part of the due diligence.